The last list was, more or less, a perfect fit for all of the big complaints I could think of for Dollhouse. When I brainstormed up the list, there were exactly 10, plus the scene in Epitaphs where Dude Ivy is assigned the role of aggressor simply for being male. I decided against considering expanded universe stuff for the list though, as the main point of this series is defending the TV show from the feminists who attacked it during its run. I considered adding a special spot at the end for expanded universe material, but that seemed excessive. Incidentally, if I had used something from the expanded universe for the second list, it would have been Hazel's final message in Dollplay. When it came to brainstorming epic feminist parts though, I came up with a ton of examples, and it was hard to narrow it down. I think that emphasizes my point about how the show is very feminist, and how I really don't think that a lot of the popular complaints have any merit. After a lot of comparisons and going, this is what I came up with. Number 10. The overall way Victor is given a feminine role. This may sound weird after I went on about how it's so offensive that we're supposed to laugh at Victor being a woman, but gender is a very complex thing with many facets, and these are represented by different episode writers. Even though in Season 2, Episode 3, Bell shows we're to regard his feminine expression deriving directly from gender identity as laughable, there is a general set of traits associated with the female gender role that is treated seriously when Victor wears them, and that is what is commendable. When you think about people as the prisoners of sex traffickers and pimps, what automatically comes to mind is women. Women are a big part of the active population, but men are among them too. We are first introduced to Victor through Lubov, a traditionally masculine source of power, and then with the twist that Lubov is part of the Dollhouse conspiracy, we get to know an intriguingly weak Victor. In a society like ours that honors masculine strength, it's hard to find a good portrayal of masculine weakness. Masculine weakness is often used to degrade and shame, turning weak men into walking jokes. But Victor is treated with great respect. We respect him as a victim, and want to protect him in the way that is often done with female characters. When people fight on Victor in Season 1, Episode 11, Briar Rose, we want to give him a comforting hug. For all I dislike the Kiki and Victor scene in Bell's shows, it still has the commendable moment where Ballard supports the feminine Victor, which a lot of people find adorable. When Alpha attacks him in Briar Rose, it resembles violence against women more than the usual attacks against men, and then his recovery is treated like that of an injured woman who needs to be taken care of. Romantically, he's passive and caring, slowly building a relationship with Sierra at the same basic speed as her. When he initially starts glitching, it's revealed in Season 1, Episode 8, Needs, that it's because he has an unresolved romantic interest. And he has a need to get the girl as much as Sierra needs to confront Nolan, as much as Ekko needs to free the actives, and November needs to mourn her daughter. While Ekko and Sierra are given active and traditionally masculine desires, November and Victor together are given passive and traditionally feminine desires. Even when Adele turns him into a traditionally masculine, active, romantic interest in Season 1, Episode 9, A Spy in the House of Love, it is all constructed for female enjoyment, and there is the distinct undertone that Adele is abusing him. We can even appreciate his desire to remain in this state of weakness. When he glitches in Season 2, Episode 4, Belonging, we observe the trauma Tony faced in the traditional masculine role of strength and his subsequent PTSD. We can understand that strength is burdensome and appreciate the freedom that weakness offers while still sympathetic to his state of victimization. When he later achieves strength as one of the main players in the fight against Rossum, it is half against his will. Joss Whedon has emphasized how he's tried to portray male subordination positively, alongside female leadership, instead of focusing only on getting women as powerful as men.
Recognizing somebody else's power does not diminish your own. When I created Buffy, I wanted to create a female icon, but I also wanted to be very careful to surround her with men who not only had no problem with the idea of a female leader, but were in fact engaged and even attracted to the idea. That came from my father and stepfather, the men who created this man, who created those men, if you can follow that.
Joss has been credited with being one of the architects of third-wave feminism, and the portrayal of Victor lovingly illustrates its principle that all genders should be appreciated in all roles. Number 9. Ekko defending Perrin from Cindy in Season 2, Episode 5, The Public Eye. Perrin's story is awesome and underrated, and Ekko's involvement allows for some truly epic storytelling. Perrin, like Ballard, starts off as a typical white knight male protagonist trying to rescue Ekko and take down the Dollhouse. The LA Dollhouse staff start thinking that his wife Cindy is actually a sleeper active poised to kill him, and they try to rescue him. Even though this gives the figure of Cindy some strength, she is still fundamentally in a state of weakness as a victimized active, similar to November functioning only as the tool of Adele. Then there's the twist that Cindy isn't an active. She's an actual in league with Rossum, and Perrin is the real active. This flips the gender role strength dichotomy without dramatically altering either's behavior. Perrin doesn't become Victor. He's still a man familiar with the role of strength, but he's now the victim of an evil woman. It takes him a bit to become aware of that, but Ekko catches on quickly. Ekko is the real hero who will save them all, and she moves to defend Perrin. Ekko's appearance, coming from a prostitute imprint, is very traditionally feminine. Perrin has a traditional male hero appearance, while Cindy has an androgynous female politician appearance, and both appear powerful with their masculine attire. Ekko, quite against her gender role, asserts herself and becomes the focus of the scene. Cindy tries to beat her into submission, and Ekko hovers in weakness for a moment before she summons all of her defiant imprints and turns into an active fighter. In essence, a whole group of strong women from past episodes unite together to rescue a man from his abusive partner. At one point, Perrin ends up being too irrational and tries to stop her because he loves Cindy, evoking the negative female stereotypes associated with cases of abuse, and Ekko disables him so she can do her duty and fight the evil woman, whom she gives a concussion. Perrin comes to his senses after that, and then they try to escape together. It's another nice example of feminine power and masculine weakness in which all roles are respected. Number 8. Priya killing Nolan in Season 2, Episode 4, Belonging. Season 1, Episode 8, Needs introduced the storyline about Nolan sending Priya to the dollhouse against her will so he could rape her again and again, and it was left unresolved until Belonging. Belonging is a revenge fantasy along the lines of Quentin Tarantino's Inglourious Basterds and Django. It is exactly about a rape victim getting revenge in a horrible, violent display. Nolan wants Priya as a subordinate wife to serve his every wishes, and Topher instead gives him the full Priya package. Priya waits for the right moment and then launches a violent rant at him, getting her issues out in the open, ending it by emphasizing the contrasting love she feels for Victor over the hate she feels for Nolan. Nolan sadistically attacks her, which makes her sadistic retaliation feel justified. It's a cathartic release in defeating the bad guy with the same level of violence he inflicted himself. Many rape victims feel righteous schadenfreude, in the same way Jews appreciate Tarantino's depiction of Jews killing Nazis, or his depiction of black people killing slavers. In general, feminism is benevolent and does not associate with undue aggression, but this fantasy fulfillment has a distinct feminist theme and is highly satisfying for many feminist viewers specifically. Number 7. Emily and Ekko's attempts to run from her creepy husband in Season 2, Episode 2, Instinct. It depicts Emily as a woman unnerved by strange going-ons and suspicions that her husband is hiding something from her. She sees mysterious fans and thinks that there's some kind of conspiracy going on. Even though her best friend Sierra tells her not to worry, she trusts her instincts and investigates the matter until she overhears her husband apparently ordering her and their son's assassinations. What follows is a tense scene in which she tries to get her son safely out of the house without arousing her husband's suspicions, and then she runs to the apparent safety of the police. Instinct focuses on one woman's suffering and leads us to respect her. It shows a familiar scene of domestic abuse and the woman's attempts to save herself and her baby from her evil husband. Many shows that depict this kind of thing would have her be saved through the vehicle of a heroic man like Ballard, and Instinct leads us to care about her struggle without having a Ballard on her side. It is all about a single woman's resourcefulness and ability to get out of danger, and when she can't succeed and is dragged back to the dollhouse, tranquilized and wiped, it is a moment of tragedy. Number 6. Claire escaping the dollhouse in Season 2, Episode 1, Vows. Okay, so Boyd is a mastermind, Claire is a victim, and Clyde 2.0 fits in there somewhere. But we didn't know that back in Vows. In Vows, Boyd is Ekko's father figure showing romantic interest in Claire, and Claire is trying to come to terms with being the broken doll. Boyd asks her out, and she denies because Topher programmed her to have intense unease with every environment not the dollhouse. Boyd compares her troubles to the troubles everyone has, saying that everyone has excuses not to deal, but they eventually have to work past them. She has her little breakdown with Topher, in which she comes to the realization that Boyd is right. By the end of the episode, Boyd discovers a note saying Claire has decided to pull herself together and face the world. She leaves the dollhouse. And not just for dinner with Boyd, she escapes. Adele can't track her down. More than just being inactive, She tells Topher she doesn't think of herself as a vessel of her original personality because she's established an identity as Claire, and any mind alteration would mean death to that identity. By living in the dollhouse, she is a prisoner waiting for execution in one form or another. And by summoning the courage to face life outside the dollhouse, she chooses life for herself. She escapes the hellish conditions inside the dollhouse and starts the journey to self-fulfillment outside it. Regardless of what happens later, this is a message of liberation and hope. Number 5. Jenny and Ekko rejecting Boyd's authority to become his protector in Season 1, Episode 2, The Target. As the second episode, The Target explores Boyd's relationship with Ekko. We see in flashbacks that he initially treats her with a cold detachment. He is unnerved by this non-person as he believes her to be. When Topher puts him through the handler protocol to establish an emotional bond with Ekko, he runs through the script extremely reluctantly because he has to fake empathy with her.
Everything's going to be all right.
Now that you're here.
Do you trust me?
With my life.
This script establishes mind-altering triggers. Now Boyd has some control over Ekko and any imprint. If necessary, he can assume the role of protector and have her trust him with her life. When Ekko, imprinted for some romantic engagement, gushes about how she's finally found the one, he starts feeling sympathy for her. He knows that she's being horribly manipulated by a prostitution organization, and he legitimately wants to protect her. In the present, Alpha decides to test Ekko by sending a psychopath to rent her and hunt her down like a deer. Boyd now truly cares about her, moves past his initial bigotry, and respects her like a daughter. He assumes the role of protective father figure and speaks the words to trigger her trust.
Everything's gonna be all right.
Now that you're here.
This is a victory for human decency and love in and of itself, making Boyd be compared to Giles in his fatherly relationship with Buffy. The psychopath nails Boyd with an arrow and they beat a hasty retreat. Jenny starts freaking out again, so Boyd repeats the trigger.
Everything's gonna be all right.
Jenny thinks about it for a moment and then rejects it.
No, it isn't.
Did you hear what I said? Everything's going to be all
Everything's not gonna be all right.
Jenny.
Do you trust me?
What?
Do you trust me?
With my life.
She assumes the part of protective figure over Boyd, speaking the same words as the trigger. Boyd understands the implications and willingly accepts a subordinate position. This subordination is treated with the same love and respect as the previous scene. That is equivalent to Buffy growing to love Giles as a father figure, graduating from the control of the Watchers, and asserting herself as their boss, a journey that took Buffy 5 seasons, all in one Dollhouse episode. That is feminist awesomeness. Number 4. Terry's psychopathic misogyny juxtaposed with a typical Dollhouse romantic engagement in Season 2, Episode 3, Bell Shows. Bell Shows on the face of it is about the Dollhouse dealing with a psychopath. When you watch the episode, though, you can tell it's as much about the dollhouse as the psychopath. The psychopath merely brings certain parallels into focus. There are a lot of parallels throughout the episode. Terry makes his victims into dolls. His victims behave similarly to the actives. Ballard's rant to Terry sounds like it may be addressed to Adele, but the part that is most overt is the cross-cutting between Terry going on a misogynistic rant and a dollhouse client seducing his student in a romantic engagement. We're already aware that the two scenes are going on at the same time, but the pacing of the cross-cutting speeds up just at that moment to create a real comparison between the two characters. Terry blames his victims because he thinks that their female sexuality forced him to act violently, while the client talks about the idea that women have the true power in every relationship with men because of that same sexuality. The scene criticizes this idea that women have real power in society by being able to affect men with sexual desire, as well as the idea that men don't have any agency in their actions towards women, which relieves men of responsibility and demonizes women. More than that, it directly compares the normal dollhouse patron to the detestable serial killer.
She's the one in control.
They never do what Terry wants. They always do what they want. She made me. It's not my fault. She made me.
Season 1, Episode 6, Man on the Street, painted a dollhouse client as halfway sympathetic in addition to creepy, but this guy turns out all creepy as his scene merges with that of the serial killer, making the whole concept disturbing. Number 3. Esther and Ekko subverting the evil cult in Season 1, Episode 5, True Believer. Similar to Terry and Bill's shows, the children of the temple and true believer are the subject that allows for reflection on the Dollhouse, as the two are directly compared. It begins with a senator condemning the cult, in which his words are placed over imagery of Ekko in the Dollhouse, showing us how similar she is to the victim of a cult. Adele even smirks over it. The evil cult leader Jonas Sparrow is described as a rapist and is shown to be a cruel, violent man who manipulates people and hurts them in the name of keeping a clean Garden of Eden. He is compared to Adele when she talks about how Victor can't be allowed to sexually develop in order to keep a pristine dollhouse paradise, with Topher and Claire nodding like Jonas's followers. Boyd sadly comments on Esther's ability to enter cults because he knows Ekko entered something very similar. Because there are very overt parallels between the cult and the Dollhouse, this makes Esther's subversion of the cult a metaphor for Ekko's eventual subversion of the Dollhouse itself. Topher programs Esther to be a true believer, someone so swallowed up by faith that Jonas would accept her as a follower at once, and he has Claire objectify her by turning her into a human camera for the ATF, removing her own vision. She enters the cult at the lowest state, reflecting Caroline's descent into dollhood. When Jonas gets panicked, he strikes her, causing the implant to break, which gives her back her sight and cuts off the ATF at the same time. When he goes to strike her again, she catches it, making use of that power she's received. Her devotion to Jonas changes when she realizes that he's trying to burn everyone alive. Despite being programmed as a true believer, she strikes him down to rescue his followers. It's a feminist message about free will, subverting tyranny, and foreshadowing Ekko's main revolution against Rossum. Number 2. Ekko rebelling against Alpha in Season 1, Episode 12, Omega. The first season builds up the terrifying specter of Alpha, and we get to see him in action in Season 1, Episode 11, Briar Rose, and Season 1, Episode 12, Omega. He is a genius psychopath who locks onto Caroline as a target while in doll state, and proceeds to stalk Ekko. He violently attacks her female rival Whiskey, accidentally obtains superpowers in the struggle to control him, goes on a mad killing spree as the world's first supervillain, and begins stalking Ekko from this position, stealing her away from the dollhouse in Briar Rose. In Omega, he describes his plan to help Ekko ascend to his level as a superior being, a god. As he is called Alpha, she will be called Omega, referencing the Greek Alpha and Omega, symbolic shorthand for Jesus Christ. He intends to have her celebrate her ascension with the blood sacrifice of her original personality Caroline, imprinted on another woman. He presses a key and imprints Ekko with all of her imprints, creating a superior being composed of all of those women we've seen overcoming their individual struggles. Ekko says she gets it, that she understands everything. She picks up a pipe as if to kill Caroline, and instead attacks Alpha. She has ascended, become something awesome, and there's no way she's gonna conform to this guy's demented wishes. She rejects the name Omega and the notion that she would ever be Alpha's girlfriend.
I may not know who I am, but at least I know who I'm not. I'm not your girlfriend.
When Alpha recovers, he kills Caroline and holds a gun to Caroline's imprint wedge, gaining the upper hand. He makes Ekko sit back in the chair so he can kill her. Ekko at first goes along with it to save Caroline, until Alpha starts detailing his torture plans, and she refuses to bow down to him. She verbally attacks him, strides towards him, and intimidates him to the point that he considers her a threat, and shoots her only to slow her down as he beats a retreat. I love how this takes the typical horrific antagonist of women. I don't think he's a misogynist, but he's a psychopath who targets women, and has him subverted, if not defeated, by the woman he targets. We have the traditional male heroes Ballard and Boyd coming after him too, but they don't get there in time. Ekko has to deal with Alpha on her own, and she does wonderfully. Alpha does damage, but there has to be a balance or else the character doesn't seem that threatening. Alpha is a terrifying monster, and Ekko raises herself out of the position of victim and manages to scare him. Even though he gets away to mind-wipe Ballard another day, the fact that he loses his strength and is made to retreat from this conflict because of his female victim being stronger than anyone anticipated is a feminist victory. And the number one reason Dollhouse is feminist is Ekko's overall arc.
I've gotta find the freedom that's promised me. Freedom from our struggles and our misery.
What makes Dollhouse a feminist show more than anything else is its overall story. It starts with a defeated Caroline being bullied into signing a contract to turn her into a sex slave, and then we see the consequences of that with her as the slave. The first episodes are about her at her lowest. Our individual imprints go through many revolutions against male oppressors, but Ekko herself is still stuck in this lowly state as a Dollhouse prisoner. But she starts evolving, becoming more and more of a fully realized person who recognizes her state and wants to change it. We can tell that she's retaining lessons learned in each of her engagements. In Season 1, Episode 2, The Target, Jenny associates her struggle for survival with the shoulder to the wheel gesture, and then after Dominic hassles doll state Ekko, she makes that same gesture. In Season 1, Episode 3, Stage Fright, Ekko and Sierra start a friendship in doll state, strengthen it in their imprints, and continue it afterward in doll state. But Ekko tells her not to show affection because she knows it will attract the wrong sort of attention from Dominic. In Season 1, Episode 4, Grey Hour, doll state Ekko is taught the beauty of cubism, remembers it after a mind wipe, and contemplates her fragmented existence based on that painting. In Season 1, Episode 5, True Believer, Esther sees Dominic try to kill her, and doll state Ekko indicates that she knows well that Dominic is her enemy. In Season 1, Episode 6, Man on the Street, Ekko is unable to complete her engagement as Rebecca, and doll state Ekko wants to finish it. In Season 1, Episode 8, Needs, Caroline learns about what Topher does with the chair, and doll state Ekko retains that knowledge in Season 1, Episode 9, A Spy in the House of Love. This leads to Ekko asking Topher to imprint her as a detective to root out the spy, which ends up with her defeating Dominic and him laughing that
one day you'll be a racing man. And even after all this, they still won't see it coming.
And then in Season 1, Episode 12, Omega, Alpha speeds up her evolution by dumping all of her imprints in her head at once. He thinks that she'll be his partner Omega, but she rejects that identity and continues as a powerful Ekko. In Season 2, Episode 1, Vows, she reveals herself to Ballard and vows to take down the Dollhouse. In Season 2, Episode 2, Instinct, she rejects Ballard's offer to have him rescue them himself, and she asserts herself as the real hero of the story. In Season 2, Episode 4, Belonging, she actively manipulates the Dollhouse denizens so that they'll be more useful to her rebellion, getting Topher to be more empathetic, and trying to get Victor to be more assertive. In Season 2, Episode 6, The Left Hand, Bennett imprints her with a memory that throws Caroline's morality into question. In Season 2, Episode 7, Meet Jane Doe, she describes how liberating it is because she's evolved into an entity in her own right, and she doesn't want Caroline to steal her life away. When she returns to the Dollhouse, she really appears as a savior figure like Jesus. She has a superior look about her, but not in a mean, tyrannical way as with Adele. She looks like a morally good leader that everyone with a brain should follow. She looks like she knows things, and she looks down at the actives like they're her people. And the actives look up at her like she's some noble god who will lead them into the light, into freedom. The Jesus parallels are emphasized in Season 2, Episode 10, The Attic, when Tony and Priya take their leaps of faith and let themselves be killed in the attic so that they can join Ekko in the real world, trusting that she won't let them die for real. At the end of the attic, all of the revolutionaries gather. Ekko has taken this diverse group of people from Adele and Topher to Tony and Priya, and she's united them with the common goal of taking down Rossum. She was once this lowly slave, but now she started a revolution that contains even Dollhouse staff like Adele and Topher, in addition to fellow slaves, and they're all willing to work together. On top of that, they all admire and respect Ekko as the hero. Even Adele, whose main character trait is that she likes to be in control, will follow her. In Season 2, Episode 12, The Hollow Men, they take on Rossum. Ekko is imprinted with Caroline, and they fit together perfectly instead of either having to dominate the other. This is something that I wish they could have gone into more detail over, but I understand that they were pressed for time, and it's nice to have it regardless. Caroline fights Clyde 2.0 in the friendly face of Whiskey, and she manages to win without killing Whiskey. Then she faces her father figure Boyd, in which Ballard, the traditional male hero, is completely useless. And with Topher's help, she is able to defeat him and stop Rossum for a while, if not permanently. In Season 1, Episode 13, Epitaph 1, and Season 2, Episode 13, Epitaph 2, we see Caroline as the leader of a band of actuals who have created a sanctuary in the zombie apocalypse. She leads Safe Haven, and the tech heads back to the Dollhouse to literally save the world. And she gets to enjoy a lifetime with her lover Ballard in her head, as she finally gets to take a well-deserved rest. The Dollhouse story is about a woman who falls to the lowest point and ascends to the highest point. It's about an institution of sexual slavery being defeated by one of the female slaves instead of a traditional male hero like Ballard. Ballard helps, but he's not the main hero. The main story told is about Ekko rebelling, evolving, having many copies, and having a plan. She actually turns into a Jesus figure that everyone wants to follow. She leads bad people to become good, and she eventually leads her followers to save the entire planet. This is the story at the heart of the show, and it's what makes Dollhouse feminist to its core.
I have 38 brains. Not one of them thinks you can sign a contract to be a slave.